Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Tuesday's Table Talk. I'm your co-host, Melissa Watts.
And I am Dennis Faint.
And today we are going to jump right into the field of estate planning. And we are delighted today to have with us Birmingham native and attorney Scott Harwell. Thank you, Scott, for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm not a Birmingham native. No, I was born and raised in Flomaton, Alabama, which is right on the state line of Florida and Alabama.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you.
Well, both Melissa and I have known you for a little while. So when it
I'm
came
sorry.
time to bring this information to you and we wanted to talk to a lawyer, we knew exactly who to turn to. Scott, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you have been practicing law?
Well, born and raised in Alabama, except when I went to law school in Oregon in 1992 to 95. And so that's where I graduated from. So I have been practicing now almost 29 years.
Oh, wow.
And you guys know this from B1 Ministries. That's sort of my side hobby. I like to do live streams like this and discuss topics, theological topics, some deep dives on things, prophecy, and do sort of I don't know. That's sort of my hobby, other than hunting and fishing and my kids and everything, is sort of Bible stuff. So I've always been like that, and I inherited it from my dad. So, and I practice law. I practice law to pay bills.
You practice law to support your hobbies, right?
and
like
take care of my wife. Yes.
Yeah. So, as we prepared for this interview, we spoke with you previously, and then, of course, Dina and I have had several years of experience doing not necessarily estate planning, because we're not attorneys, but we have been involved in notarization of those documents and everything. And as we began to prepare for this interview, we kind of broke it down into two categories. One being standard or simple estate planning, and the other being advanced estate planning. Can you kind of break it down for us and kind of tell us and explain to us what the difference is?
Well, I'll put it this way: like when you called me, depending on the amount of wealth you have, and if you are getting close to, or you are over the line, and you're fairly wealthy, then you don't need to come to me or a general practice lawyer or a multi-practice lawyer. You would probably need to go see a tax lawyer, an estate planning tax lawyer, if you're trying to structure your estate so that the federal government doesn't get more money, and you can leave more money to your heirs, etc. And
Right.
so, but like I explained to you, that only applies to, and I'm making this number up, but maybe 1, 2, or the top 3% of people that would live in the state of Alabama. From what I understand, and I'm only licensed in Alabama, but from what I understand, other states have estate taxes that might be in addition to. So anybody would actually need to speak, if they're in Georgia, they would need to talk to a Georgia attorney. If they're in Florida, there's going to be different. They just need to check with their local state lawyers. And I don't make any representations about Oregon or Wisconsin or New York law or California or anything like that. It's just Alabama does not, again, if you're that wealthy, you need to go talk to someone from a federal level. So, I might have turned down 2 or 3 people in my career that, they wanted me to do a will for them. And I started asking questions. And I said, I am so sorry, I can't just charge you $1,000 to handle all this for you. You need to go downtown and probably spend about 20. But if they've got that kind of money, 20,000 is like $20 for most of us. So,
Yeah.
Well, Scott, a lot of people want to know, do you have to go through an attorney to draft these very important documents? Or can you just use an online service like Rocket Lawyer, or even a virtual legal service like LegalZoom to draft the documents for you and then just take them and have them notarized?
you can try to do it yourself. And my analogy is, if I'm kind of handy in doing something around the house, I don't have to hire a contractor, but sometimes I screw it up. you know? And you might want to, at a minimum, have a lawyer look at it and make sure that it complies with all the rules and regulations, and you dot your I's and you cross your T's. Because then if you didn't do it properly, it's going to end up costing your spouse or your children or your estate a lot more money dealing with it because it wasn't done correctly. So I would always recommend, at a minimum, if somebody wants to try to do it on their own and they just want to pay me a simple consult fee to look at it and go, yeah, that complies with the law. You've dotted your I's and crossed your T's. So we're certainly not in the business of not making business.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah, you got to support those habits of yours,
yeah,
those hobbies of yours. That's right.
and buy food and pay for the dogs and all that stuff. So
Right. Exactly.
So I know we've kind of been talking a lot about so far about what estate planning is and what things apply to this, a standard or simple versus an advanced. But now let's wander into the real question, why we are here. And this is sort of a two-part question.
okay.
And that is, first, if it's true that most attorneys have notaries on staff or they themselves are notaries, like a civil law notary themselves, then if that's true, then why do attorneys sometimes need mobile notaries to go out and notarize documents for them?
Maybe for the elderly,
Right.
somebody that's infirm. And I've told people before, look, I'll do this for you. I'll show up at the hospital. I'll show up at the house and I'll notarize it. But I've actually sent people your direction, because why do they want to pay me $3.50 an hour for
Right.
me just to drive to someone's house and meet with them? Because I don't
Right.
charge anything extra to meet with people here at the office and notarize. But if I'm having to go to Birmingham or things of that nature, then I'm going to build that into what I charge in my fees. And that's where it would be much more affordable for the client to reach out to you guys. And I know I've given 2 or 3 people your name over the past year since you told me you were doing this. So
That's right.
that would be one example, definitely.
Okay. Well, awesome. Having said that, what is the best way for notaries to network with estate planning lawyers so that they can get on their list of the ones to call when they do need one?
Yeah, maybe really that might depend on their age, Dina. If you're an older person like myself and call me, I mean, but yeah, if you're dealing with an attorney, or attorneys that are probably late 40s, 50s, 60s, they're going to appreciate a phone call more than you're going to get immediately blocked if you send me an email. And I didn't ask you to send me an email. I mean, I'm just, whereas younger attorneys, I don't know how they a lot of times it's just a generational thing. Some people would rather deal with it through email or text message, things of that nature. I'm still a pick up the phone person.
Okay.
I would, even if you call me, say, okay, fine, come in, let's meet for 10 or 15 minutes and give me your card. And next time I need this, I will keep you in mind. So that's what I would try to do, maybe is try to make an appointment maybe and get that face-to-face connection if you can do it. Ask them to go to breakfast or lunch or something.
Oh, that's a good
Okay.
idea. That's
Yeah.
a really good idea.
Yeah.
So kind of while you were talking, I know I'm kind of going a little bit off script from what I had prepared, but in the back of my mind, as you were talking earlier, I was thinking about, we're talking about estate planning. And I know that I'll just go ahead and share with y'all, Scott did our estate planning. And there were 3 main documents that he encouraged us to do, and that was a will, and then a power of attorney, and then the other one was, and this is very important, and I have been through this because of what happened with my mom, and that is you need to have a healthcare directive. Scott, are there any other documents you can think of that you would recommend that people kind of package together?
Not for your average person. Some people, and they do ask, a lot of people ask about trust. revocable living trust.
Right.
And of course, that's going to entail more drafting, more time on my end, transferring property into the name of the trust. But some people want to do that so they don't, so that so their heirs don't even have to go through probate. And so it's sort of, you pay a little more money on the front end while you're living, you pay it, as opposed to your spouse or your children paying more money on the back end to pay me or another attorney to probate the will and do all the forms, get all the consents done, things of that nature, give them advice about what they can and cannot do as the executor. Whereas if you set up a revocable living trust, you're the trustee, and if it's a joint revocable living trust, the two spouses are the trustees of the trust during their lives. But then if everything's titled in the name of the trust, you don't have to then get appointed as the executor or the administrator, personal representative of the estate through the probate court. You have the legal documents already to sell the house, to sell the car, to access bank accounts, things of that nature.
Okay. Gotcha.
Interesting. Interesting.
Well, if flipping back to the previous question about how to connect and network with attorneys, if you all are interested, we have, in getting your name out there and truly networking with attorneys, we have developed a one-page resume that we'd be glad to help you get the ball rolling with. Just send us an email at admin@Notary Know-How, and we'll help you get that started. But Dina, were there any other questions that you had for Scott today?
I don't have any questions really. Just want to ask you, Scott, do you have anything else that you want to say or add before we wrap up?
I can't really think of anything. Again, your average person, the power of attorney is actually probably the most important document while they're living.
Mhm.
And that healthcare directive, because if not, then if God forbid something happens to somebody, and then next thing you know, their children, instead of you paying like $100, $200 for a power of attorney, your children are having to hire me or another lawyer to file a petition with the probate court to get appointed as your legal conservator. You have to then get a bond. You then have to do an accounting every 3 years. And you're having to pay for a guardian ad litem and a court-appointed representative and court costs. So all of a sudden, what should have been $200 can be $5,000 to $15,000 just to get appointed. Not to mention the hassle of every 3 years having to do the accounting, paying the bond each year. And then the same thing from a not as much of a hassle to be appointed as a legal guardian, but you still have to get appointed. There still has to be court costs and fees, and the person's money is getting sucked down into court costs and legal fees. And if they have a health care directive, they don't need someone to be appointed as their legal guardian to make medical decisions for them. And
Right.
that's the older we get, the more important that is.
Mhm.
Yes,
So
Scott, that's valuable information. Thank you so much for sharing that with everyone. What area do you work in? What area are you in?
I like to say, what area of town I mean, I'm all over the
Your
Birmingham
office.
area. Yeah, I mean, my office is in Chelsea, but I practice primarily in Shelby County, St. Clair County, Jefferson County. I'll go anywhere if somebody needs a lawyer and they hire me to go, and if it's in the state of Alabama.
Okay.
If they're
Well,
willing to pay that, right?
right.
Well, and I do, and I explain, and I'm honest that if you're hiring me and you want me to go to Huntsville, I'm probably going to charge you more money than if I'm just if I have to go to Columbiana.
Right.
And so I advise them, if you want to pay that extra money, I'll come up. And I have some people that know me, or I'm a past client of theirs and they want to do it. I mean, they're past clients. And so I've had cases in Mobile and up in Huntsville and pretty much all over the state over the past 29 years. So
Well,
Scott, how
before
can
Dana,
people? Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I'll say before Dana wraps this up, I did want to ask one other quick question, because you've used this term several times over the last several minutes, and you're talking about going to the probate court and probating a will and all that kind of thing. And I know we had some issues with my mom's estate and everything. Can you explain real quick, what does that literally mean when you probate a will?
Well, yeah, a lot of people are under the mistaken impression. I've had clients call me, well, I have the will. What do I need to, why can't I just do what the will says? Well, you don't have the legal authority from the court yet. You've got a piece of paper, but you don't have the legal authority as the personal representative of the estate to sell a house or to legally transfer title to a car. Or even if you're the executor on the will and mama had a bank account and you're not the beneficiary on it, that money's just going to sit there in the bank until a legal representative, it's called the personal representative, is appointed. Then they take those letters of administration to the bank, transfer the money or withdraw the money and put it into an estate account. And so that's what the probate process is. And then it's usually a period of 6 months. That way creditors can file claims. And during that period, you can, if you have a will, you can sell the house, sell the car, things of that nature. If it's not left to anybody in the will. And that's the key. That's really the key. You asked that question earlier, Melissa, but that's really the key. Yeah, can you do a cookie cutter will? But do you really know the law? Are you really thinking how you want things to happen? Is there a situation in your family where you're not leaving things equally to everybody? I mean, I try to head off those problems. I had one recently where the gentleman said, just probated his will, and he's like, I do not want to leave anything to my son. And I asked him why, and he explained to me why. And I said, well, look, you need to put this in the will. The reason you need to put it in the will is because you can't speak from the grave. And in the interim, his wife and his other son are asking me, kind of begging him to put this kid this other child in the will. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And and then he passed away. He came to me, he knew he was sick, and he passed away, and it's in the will. And because of that, it's going to be hard for that son to cause problems with the estate, because his dad was very specific as to why he did not want it.
He took the precautions and he went to someone who was knowledgeable in that area, such as yourself, and didn't just go online and do a hodgepodge estate planning.
And it could have, and again, it could have saved, the amount, and I usually, I only charge if a couple come in and they both want to do wills, I usually charge like $1,000 for all 6 documents. If it's just an individual coming in, I usually charge like $600. So we're not talking about major buku money for a simple will. So it's more expensive for a trust, and because I'm drafting deeds and things of that nature, but it can save thousands down the road, if not tens of thousands.
Yes.
Well, you may have a future client right here, because I do not have one.
You need one.
Yes. Well, Scott, how can people get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is to call me. Like I said earlier, 205-999-1099. You would think I'm a tax lawyer, but I'm not, because it's 999-1099.
1099.
Yeah. And or my email address is Scott, SCOTT, at harwelllaw.com. That's HARWELLLAW.com. They can check out the website, but I mean, it's just going to list what I do. And I'm still, again, if people call me, I call them back. If I'm on the phone, I'll call you back. So.
Okay. Well, while Melissa and I both have notarized some estate planning documents, that's not our main bread and butter, but there's been a lot of chatter in our notary communities here lately about estate planning. So we just really wanted to get some information about it and provide that to all of our notary people. So, Scott, thank you so incredibly much for joining us today on this edition of Tuesday Table Talk. Melissa, is there anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, just thank you so much, Scott. We appreciate your time. We know you're very busy and you've got a lot on your plate. And we thank you for taking the time out to speak with our students at Notary Know-How.
You're more than welcome.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.